I'm your host, Audra Carter, on Bridging the Gap, and tonight's show is going to be centered around vision and purpose. One of the things that I'm hearing in the community is that we're in a transition of time here like no other. And many people are just concerned about how do we build a strong community, nation, and country. And one of the things I'd like to enlighten you tonight, and maybe you can help us in doing your part, is in how to build something out of confusion and upset. And tonight I have with me two people that I know very, very well. I have Wayne Riddlebaugh. Is that your name?
That's me.
Not Whittlebaum, but Riddlebaugh. Huh?
You got it.
Thanks for being with me.
It's a pleasure.
And you're with the American Heritage Ministries?
Yes.
And you've been here in Pensacola quite a while.
I've been here, I guess I was born in Central Florida, but lived most of my life here. So it's home to me. And
you have a ministry that does what?
Well, American Heritage Ministry is a ministry we founded about 10 years ago, simply to sort of be another voice in our nation that tries to speak out about the issues that we face and try to develop vision and purpose within our communities and our country as a whole. And I'm the chief spokesperson of the organization.
Thank you for being here. And also a dear friend of mine, Irvin Stallworth, Pastor Irvin Stallworth. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
And you are up in Century.
Correct.
So you do a lot of work with helping to build synergy and cohesiveness there. And we want to thank you for all the work that you're doing up there. And these two gentlemen are going to have a dialogue with me tonight about vision and purpose and how important it is in transforming our community. I'd like to ask you, Wayne, and I chose a spiritual platform to talk about it because I think change and transformation has a lot to do with each individual's coming to a state of understanding. But I think spiritually, there's a brokenness in our community and nation. How important is that if we're going to move toward change and accept change?
Well, obviously, as a minister, I think Irvin and I would both agree that, you know, the spiritual aspect of every individual is the basis of everything that happens after that. And, you know, even the Bible itself says, without a vision, the people perish. So spiritually, I think that, you know, that has to be a foundation. But in our country and in communities all across our nation, we have lost our sense of a moral conscience. And, you know, for 50, 60 years now, we have continually put morality and spirituality on the back burner and replaced that with programs and ideas and concepts, and yet look at the shape our nation and our communities are in today. They're in chaos. We're in a horrible state. And so, you know, to get a vision, we really need to back up and say, you know, programs don't solve the problem. Programs don't give you a vision. We need to develop that within ourselves by developing a spiritual and a moral compass once again.
Pastor Stallworth, you deal with a certain level of mentality, not just up in Century, but probably around the state. How important is that for you pulling together, or have you been able to pull it together in the work that you do as we look at vision and purpose?
Well, in the context of vision and purpose, I couldn't agree with Wayne more than the moral compass component. But as I travel across the state, what I found out is people are feeling like they're disconnected.
Right.
And so when we talk about bridging the gap, my qualifying question is, what can anyone do for us that we can't do for ourselves? And then we ended up, you know, figuring out how we can help meet the people's needs in other areas. And when it comes to vision and purpose, again, the church has always been the center of that compass. I remember growing up, When I couldn't go anywhere else, I had to go to church.
Right.
And I could find all those needs met there. So again, it's people are lost in the context of not knowing which direction to go. And we just need to get that back and pride in our communities and bridging the gap.
You know, not everyone can be a bridge builder.
That's true.
So I got to look at the spiritual gifts of people. I believe Pensacola has a lot of bridge builders here. I think they're seen and unseen. They're not necessarily the ones that are out front. And I'd like to have a dialogue with the community. If we could build them, if this show could do anything for someone, what would you say to someone out there who's saying, you know, I want to bridge the gap. I mean, I want to bridge the gap in my home, in my church, at my work. What would you tell them are steps to making that commitment?
The first commitment I would say would be pride and passion. With the vision, you have to have passion. You got to like what you do. Whether I get a paycheck or not, I like what I do. I like the effect that it has of changing people's minds. Again, it's not my responsibility as a pastor, nor as what people perceive as me as a community leader, is to tell people what to think, but it is to challenge them to think.
Yes.
And so bridging the gap in that context is, you know, letting them take pride in what they're doing and having a passion. What do you like to do? And then taking that component, bringing it into the community to add to what I like to do. And then we connect those, again, going back to the Bible says we're each part of a part.
Yeah.
And all have to come together to make the whole body. So I need you, Audra. I need Wayne. And I need the other community leaders. I can't do it by myself, nor do I want to.
How about you, Wayne? What would you say about that?
Well, I agree, and you know, we are fortunate in the Panhandle of Florida as a whole. I mean, there are wonderful bridge building events that take place in our community that many people don't even know about. You know, the Martin Luther King breakfast, the governmental prayer breakfast. You know, we are fortunate to have events that attempt to bridge the gap and to bring that gap or make it narrower and narrower and narrower. But again, you know, that is such a small percentage of our population that even knows those things exist. So, you know, as Irvin said, I look at it that the person needs to develop pride in who they are, not focus so much on where they are or what their set of circumstances are. You know, an impoverished neighborhood, for instance, does not have to look dirty and nasty and paper all over the place. It can look just as clean as a nice neighborhood. And those are pride issues. You know, we need to, you cannot develop pride and moral respect and a moral conscience within yourself until you get past your circumstances and look back within yourself and say, I am valuable, I have value, I have things to offer, and then be willing to mold that and begin to offer those gifts to the community.
Well, then the question comes up, whose responsibility is that?
Well, it's all of our responsibility. It's my responsibility because I didn't grow up rich, and no one told me I was poor. And so we had beans and franks one day, franks and beans the next day, hot dogs and weenies the next day. So when we talked about bridging the gap, I took pride, and it started with me. And the most wonderful woman that has ever been in my life, other than my wife now, is my mother. I don't know how she raised 9 kids and balanced the budget off of what my dad made. So she taught me how, even in our situation, we can still learn finances. And then I can take that to the next level and teach my children and my children and my children how to do that. And then, again, taking those experiences when the opportunity presents itself, like what Wayne's saying with you know, the governmental prayer breakfasts and the different events that are going around, the Arts Festival, the Teaspoon Festival up in Century. We can bring those resources and teach those things to our children and have them grow up with that sense of pride, and then we don't skip generations. My mother told me she wasn't going to wait till I got 14 to tell me what I should or shouldn't have done. And so that was one of the things that really came. We don't want to be placating people, but at the same time, we don't want to understand that we do have a divide. There are poor people, and they don't want to be poor. They want to be disenfranchised, but somewhere we've missed opportunities. And through the organization that we have, the Century Community Development Partnership, of which I'm the executive director, we're trying to create opportunities. Again, because when a young lady drops out of high school to take care of her kid because she has to work at one of the fast food restaurants to put her child through daycare so she can go to work, well, again, when you encourage her to go back and get her education to do better, well, the qualifying question again would be, and then what? And so we have to answer the then what question. And I think that's how we can bridge the gap. Go back there, get your education, and then we offer the then what. We bring in the businesses, we bring in the opportunities for them to seize those moments to bridge the gap in their lives.
You know, you bring a very important thing. You said that what you decided to do is develop a corporation that would help bridge a gap in your community. Yeah. And that's one person who just chose to do one thing and is helping many people. It went from an individual to now a corporation.
Correct.
And it can connect because, you know, there's that stereotypical thing that it's only for our people when it really, in fact, is for all people to take advantage of. You know, what if one person had a thought who then took that thought and linked up with yours without this defining mine or yours, but ours? That's when the overlap, and you know how you're braiding something?
Exactly.
What makes it strong is that you're braiding it, crisscrossing it so that it has strength, exactly, rather than just having one strand. So we went from individual person, the break, to, okay, what are the things I need to have? You need to have vision and purpose, and how do you build it? To an individual man who made a difference to create a corporation to take care of need. Now, how do we build that further, Wayne?
Well, we just need to keep doing more things like that. I know in our ministry, our organization, you know, basically I exist to try to help people to reconnect and become a valuable resource in their community again. And, you know, for instance, being poor doesn't mean lack of value. Right. As an individual.
Right.
A poor person can be just as valuable, can vote just as much, can go volunteer down at the community center to help the little kids just as much as a rich person can. And so the core things that help build a conscience within a community start with the person. And so I try to develop a pride in the person and a realization that the person can make a difference. And it has dramatically changed in our nation. I brought one quick little set of statistics I wanted to share with you just to show how the lack of this moral conscience has harmed our country. Since 1962, when prayer was taken out of the schools and several other issues happened to take spirituality out of the equation as much as possible in our nation, listen to some of these statistics. Teen suicide among 15 to 19 years olds went up 450%, and these are as of the 2000 census. Child abuse went up 2,300%. Illegal drugs went up 6,000% among our youth. Criminal arrest of teenagers 14 to 17 years old went up 150%. Divorce up 350%. Illegitimate births to unmarried girls 15 to 19 years old went up 500%. So if you don't have the spiritual pride and a moral conscience within yourself, society starts collapsing And little by little, you become coarse to these things. We think that some of this stuff is okay. You know, and I know it's controversial, but as a minister, I'm against abortion. And as of this year, the 35th anniversary since Roe versus Wade, we will reach the 50 million mark in murdered unborn children in America. America, not the whole world, America. And so, you know, we have to get to a point where we have to say to ourselves in our communities, no, these things are not okay. You have value. Let's reinvent ourselves. Let's step back. Let's look at the things that are important in our lives and put them into practice in our communities. And that will, I mean, when we went the other way over for 50 years, it has destroyed many things in our nation. And so if we go back and do it a more proper, more moral way, then it will change us back again. But everything cannot be okay and find our communities in a healthy condition.
And right now, I think from those statistics, we're very unhealthy.
Oh, very unhealthy.
And one of the things that our community can help is by reinventing ourselves. We have lost 2 generations. Pensacola is not any different from any big city, but when we take ownership for where we are at a particular time and space and making a difference at that moment with the audience that we have, whether it be 1 person or 10 people, or 2,000 or 2 million, I believe that's when we start really bridging the gap by changing and transforming. A lot of people say, well, we have gaps that are created by man. That means people who have a real desire to control, either because they want to control money, or they can control power, or control what happens in an environment to suppress people from getting out, from coming and transforming. I know it's a difficult question to ask, and I don't expect you to have all the answers today, but I do think it's a very valid concern in a cultural way. How do we get past that? I mean, the past, and the past holding us in a community way.
We don't want to get rid of the past, because the wise man said, if you don't remember the past, you're doomed to repeat it. So we look at the past to see how far we came, but it also inspires us that we can go even further. And so to answer your question, I believe it's still about building relationships. You build relationships not only with pride in yourself, but I need to build a relationship with Audra and bridging the gap. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be on television right now talking about what we're doing. So we build this relationship. Well, people who are in poverty and generations who were born in and need an exodus and born on SSI, born on Social Security, born into those environments, not that anything's wrong with it, we need those bridges. But I've traveled this country and I have yet to see a house built on a bridge. I don't want to stay there. A bridge is for us to cross over to the other side. And so I build relationships. I build relationships with federal agencies, build relationships with state agencies, build relationships with local agencies and governments, and then build relationships with people. Because we can talk about communities all we want to. We can have a bunch of sticks and bricks and trees, but if there are no people in it, you don't have a community. So we always got to remind ourselves we're talking about people. So build relationships with people. So my attitude with the power and the power struggle and the influence and all that, perception is reality to the person who perceives. So my answer would be, simply put, is I just build another relationship. What can you do for me that I can or already have done for myself? And if you can't do that, to bring that economic development, to bring those housings, to bring revitalization to our community, then I need to find somebody else who can.
Wow. And
that's okay. That don't mean I hate you. That don't mean I don't like you. That mean you just can't help me.
And you're not necessarily fighting about it then.
I'm not fighting.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
It's purpose with a vision.
Vision
with a goal.
And purpose.
Wow.
Vision and purpose.
That is so profound.
You know, we also need to come to the realization that a bridge has two sides. And, you know, we don't want to totally focus just on one side of the bridge, which might be, you know, the poor, the needy, and so forth. We need to look at the other side of the bridge and build some bridges there too and change some attitudes. You know, those that might have resources or might be rich or might be politicians or might be well off, you know, that side of the bridge needs to quit looking across the bridge as if it's a leper community on the other side. An example that I like to use, which I think illustrates that, is, you know, the number of people that become famous and successful in the recording industry is a very small percentage of our population. But yet, you go to any community in our nation and go to the churches or listen to people that sing with groups and community groups and so forth, and you will hear talent that's just as good as the person that's making millions on television and making CDs and videos and all of that. The difference was the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we need to look at both sides of this bridge, and we need to say to the people on the more affluent side of the bridge, help us present the opportunities. Then when this hand reaches out with the opportunities to this side of the bridge, you have bridged the gap. And so it's both sides of that bridge that's part of our problem, not just one side. And you know, by giving those opportunities, we can bring forth a wealth of talent and ability and purpose that can influence and get involved in our community.
And you see, I have a vision. It hadn't materialized yet. And just because it hadn't materialized yet don't mean it's not going to happen. It may take time, but that's okay. And people have to, I believe people should stop looking at themselves as failures because it hadn't happened yet. And let's just go ahead and build those relationships and create opportunities and allow people, again, to go back to taking pride in themselves, because, you know, we have a little thrift store ministry that it was free, and we never understood why nobody would get the stuff. But when we made it $1, we couldn't keep enough stuff in it. Well, why? Because they took pride that they paid something. So again, to the affluent, no, people don't want to hand out, and to, you know, the disenfranchised, we just want to help up. So
and I think there is...
That's the bridge.
That's a good winding down. I think that people are finally realizing that where there are a group of people who want to be fed and continually being fed, there are, I think, an explosion, if you will, or rebirth of people who want to be changed and transformed into learning how to fish for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. But if you've had 2 decades of your grandparents and your parents' parents and the fathers not being in the homes, mm-hmm. there's a lot of breaks along the way. Mm-hmm. And I'm not making any excuses for people's lives, because I realize they got to help themselves. But I think the most important thing we need to recognize from this bridge building process and how to transform and accept change is, I think, what Wayne said. It is realizing that there's two sides of the bridge. I think our county, I think our city officials are being a part of that bridge building process right now as we speak, as we deal with the economic changes that are going on in our community. I'm very proud of them. But I think they can't do it themselves.
That's right.
I think each one of us, every one of us, pastors, preachers, teachers, individuals, and the like, has to encourage everyone on an individual basis where they are. And imagine, if you will, if we decided that we're going to be affirming people. You know, kids, we always tell them from day one, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're brilliant, you're talented. And all of a sudden, when you get 16, the conversation changes, and we forget that adults need to be loved and affirmed and encouraged, and that's not a bad thing. I think as an individual, I can help by just saying thank you and affirming to our politicians, to our county commissioners, to the people who serve in our community, at the city level, at the county level, that it's a tough job being a leader today.
And change isn't easy.
Change isn't easy.
But somebody's got to do it.
It's not easy, but it is necessary.
It's necessary.
And don't think
And
that
it's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. And you can be disagreeable. You can even disagree. But once you step in that leadership role and you step out into the world and say, I serve a community or my family, then you have to put away those disagreeable personal things and push on to be a part of a community that truly is interested in bridging the gap. And I thank you out there that you listened to me on this half hour with these two great guests. I want to thank you guys for being with me. I know it's a tough job doing what both of you do. And I know that it's a tough job being an individual out there trying to be a breadwinner or a single family, especially with the youth at risk. But I believe when you see youth and people who are falling off the edge, that you can't just look the other way. I believe that God has you there. I'm talking to any of you out there who has seen someone you love going into another direction, that you can stand in the gap and bridge the gap like these gentlemen have, and that we have many people in our community doing. And I want to encourage you on the show that in the next coming weeks, and I believe in the next year, particularly with the upcoming election, we're going to see change. We have to get in front of it and be a part of it and flow with it rather than resist it. So from me to you and to all of you out there, thank you for your listening, and think about the words of wisdom of these great men, and also that you can do something to help bridge the gap in our community. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.